And hello. Well, it's very short notice, but I thought I'd do a very, hopefully a short one, on foul language and clean speech. Now, the thing that brought this on was a couple of things. Straight bourbon whiskey. All right. Somebody advertising their booze. That's fine. I don't mind. Um, yeah, a couple of things brought it on. There was there has been rather, let's say, for some time, some noise on Social Galactic about the fact that Social Galactic is only clean speech, and some people weren't happy with that. And at first I thought it was a little bit heavy-handed, because even words like, I remember I got one of my posts like taken down because I said something like, "Germans, what have they ever done except Nazi shit?" And because I had the word shit in there, it got taken out. There's always going to be a little bit of arbitrary moderation that's going to be biased one way or the other, but that's human nature. You're not going to get away from that. Hello, Salsa Bear. And so, fair enough. I sort of thought, well, whatever comes of it, it's an interesting social experiment that Vox started with Social Galactic having clean speech only. And I gotta say that I think uh, there's maybe like a couple of like dread ilk, include aside from me, that sort of think that the clean speech policy is good, or at least interesting. Most of them really don't like it. Most of them think that having clean speech is kind of gay and whatever. But I disagree with that. It is absolutely, hello, Woolly Ram. We should have another one with Woolly Ram. We'll have to think of Rick here. Oh, hail Kurgan. Thank you very much. So, a lot of the trade because I'm saying, we're complaining about the fact that it's only clean speech and blah, blah, blah. Oh, wait, there is a setting that I need to put so that you don't get the clicking preferences, I think. Play app sounds. No. That, hopefully, will be better. I just need one of you to add another comment just so we can hear if it still goes tick, because it's very distracting, and I apologize for my technical retardation. But yeah, to get back to the topic, one of the things that got me to do this was I've now been on Social Galactic for a while, and what I'm not sure of is how many people are on Social Galactic. It would be good to have the numbers of it, but it has been a very interesting social experiment, and I have to say that the clean speech policy, I think, is a very positive thing. It has resulted in generally a higher quality of conversation, and also a lowering of pointless trolling, which, testing, excellent, thank you. There's no more ping. Yeah, sorry for the last few videos. If you've been watching one of the 3-hour streams with like a ping in your ear, I looked this up earlier today, and then I was out. I didn't get a chance to do it, but just remembered now. Thanks, Woolly Ram. So the point is that it forces a certain higher level of conversation, and also, when the internet was new in the sort of mid-90s, trolling then was a new thing, and it had a certain intellectual quality to it that is now, like everything, over time it degrades. Yeah, let me switch this light on as well so you can see my pretty face. Wouldn't want you to, deprive you of seeing my handsome bald head. So, so that's one aspect. Another aspect is just foul language in general. And one of the things that brought it to my attention was I'm gonna read your comments as we go, but not to lose my train of thought. I'm just gonna carry on for a bit. So one of the other things that brought up about the idea about discussing foul language was, I'm in contact with several different people from different uh, areas of the, shall we say, internet, and I also get quite a lot of email from fans, detractors, the occasional hate mail, although I gotta say, generally, you don't get much of that. Couple of psyops emails, which are kind of weird and interesting, but whatever. Um, and one of the people that I interact with somewhat regularly mentioned the fact that they find watching Owen Benjamin streams more difficult now because of his constant foul language, reference to sodomy and masturbation and whatever. I haven't watched any of Owen's stream for quite a long time now, so I sort of take that under advisement, let's say, as in I'm not personally aware of what his streams are like on a day-to-day basis. But I've had interactions with this person for quite some time, so I tend to trust their, what they're telling me is not completely made up or a lie or whatever. So on that topic, I thought, yeah, that's, and they're saying, I can't watch the guy when I'm like listening. I can't just have him in the background when I'm whatever, doing stuff around the house with my kids or my wife. It's just not pleasant. And of course, that makes sense, regardless of whether Owen is doing that or not. I don't know, but I take this person's word at their word. I don't see why they would make that up. And I started reflecting on that because, I know I myself am far from a clean speech person. I drop F-bombs pretty regularly, including at work and, even in other social gatherings. I know how to behave, so there's certain instances where I'll watch my language, but generally speaking, if I'm with friends or whatever, I'm not really gonna concern myself too much with how I speak. Of course, when we, for example, go visit friends and that are, Catholic friends that have got a lot of kids and so on, then you watch your language, obviously. Um, and there are certain people that obviously don't respond or don't appreciate that sort of language. So again, I tend to watch myself. But in, again, proper Catholic thought and parlance, I know that's one of my recurring sins, let's say. Furthermore, generally speaking, if you have to force yourself to speak cleanly and yet without any detraction from your own way of being direct and forthright and honest, it forces you to have a better vocabulary. It forces you to have a better, cleaner, forgive the pun, way of thinking. And that is a net positive after all. So I've been giving it some thought. I don't want to sort of preempt myself, but I've been thinking, well, I should make a bit more of an effort to probably try and, even when I do the live streams and whatever, just as a personal exercise to have more clean speech. Now, I don't mean for that to be 100% clean speech. I don't mean that if I occasionally drop the F-bomb or whatever in certain conversations that's I failed. I'm not looking at it that way. I'm just looking in general to see how difficult it would be to try and keep a cleaner sort of speech in the streams. For myself, at least, you can do what you want in the comments. Again, you probably get banned by it or whatever. So it's, I think, part of the reason that I'm not too concerned about language is that I think we've got far bigger problems to deal with and far more important issues to deal with, including in the Catholic Church, than foul language. So although, yes, foul language is a minor sort of sin, because it does bring down the level of discourse. However, the level of discourse right now is pretty much sewer level, and the occasional F-bomb, you sometimes needed to wake up the average sleeping rat into making him become half human just so they pay attention. So, it's a tool as far as I'm concerned. it's not a tool that is, in an ideal world, you shouldn't need found language at all. Um, I don't know, except possibly in bed if you want to get kinky, I suppose. But um, yeah, it's just, I do think that it forces you to have a more a cleaner and more useful way of conversing to keep it clean. Generally in my books, my nonfiction books at least, I tend to keep the language clean because it's not necessary to um, to call it something else. Although even in the return reclaiming the Catholic Church, I have dropped a couple of swear words in there, but in particular contexts. So I do think it has its place, and it's not high on my list of things to like fix in the world or in myself even. But I am going to make an effort to make it a little bit more clean in general and just see how that works out for me. I do these little experiments with myself on many different things. One that I've done many times, for example, is totally abstaining from alcohol for months at a time. I haven't done that in quite a long time because I've done that over the years. I've done that many times, and it's like I know I can do it. It's not a thing, and I enjoy the occasional glass of wine. I certainly don't drink alcohol every day or anything like that, but it's useful to do these kind of things. One of my social experiments, which was to not read a newspaper or watch the news for like a month, um, that was in 2008. And I've never opened a newspaper. I have opened a newspaper on occasion at the stretch of several years to read maybe one page, possibly two at the most, and just reconfirm that, yep, that's still a complete mental sewer that gives me absolutely nothing positive. No reason for me to read it. I'm not unaware of what goes around me because I read various blogs and whatever. And yeah, nothing of use comes through the news at all. So that was a social experiment that was a net positive. So let's see this clean speech thing, maybe. I remember the brief criticism of a Novus Ordo Mass written by the Soliditium guy that I got baptized by. It's a brief book in Italian, and it's absolutely cutting. It's a kind of language that really only very educated and intelligent people tend to be able to do and also read. But for those who can and do read it, it is an absolute pleasure. And it is far more devastating than a bunch of swear words would ever be. So, it's a distant, very distant goal, but I'm thinking, well, maybe I could aim towards that sort of thing in time. So, let's have a look at some comments. Let's see. Woolly Ram says, instead of cussing, they'll just call everyone a gamma. That's, well, yeah, there are people calling people gammas, but generally speaking, on Social Galactic, I've got to say, it's a pretty, I don't know if it's a result of the clean speech or because of the people that go there are generally would be associated with Vox and so on, but um, they don't tend to use the word gamma just for no reason. They seem to have a pretty good grasp of who is, the annoying kid that's just like, actually, that guy. They pretty good at ferreting them out pretty quick. Rick here says, clean speech is a good thing. It will piss off the enemy more than us. It's another way to keep them out. That that is a very good observation, Rick. I wonder if that's a Rick that I know or somebody else. That's yeah, that's excellent. That's a very good point. It does upset the enemy more than it upsets us, so that's a good thing. Hello, Runner Bean. Flux, that looks like a new person. That one time when you kind of know what he's talking about. Okay, might be a little gamma there, but we don't know. And Grady Hugar, who's got a little avatar that I might recognize from Social Galactic, says Owen does work blue. I can't recommend him to any of the polite people I know. Yeah, that's that is a detraction at the end of the day. Pew and Bear says it was quite surprising to me that even Professor Rachel Fulton Brown is sometimes throwing Fs once in a while on unauthorized. when not overdone and when not around kids, that might be seen to be ballsy. Yeah, I like Professor Rachel Fulton Brown a lot. That lady is very accomplished at her chosen profession. I strongly recommend all her stuff on Unauthorized, especially the stuff on the medieval history. They're brilliant, and they will give you contexts about the Bible that Protestants just don't have. It's a very, very, I would say we should be recommended. I would call it recommended reading or listening to any high school student, to any really every kid should know some of that stuff. It's really very interesting stuff. Wooly Ram says that the F word has become verbal punctuation. That's true. Certainly, I know that in construction and in security work, it's people don't even blink. It's just used as P1 Bear says, or as an emphasis emotion given to the word following fucks. Yeah, again, yes. Georgian James says, I think it becomes an issue when your only descriptive words are words describing genitals, excrement, and sex. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if that's your vocabulary is limited to that, then you've got an issue. Unless you're in the Russian army, because the guy my friend who trained me for some time, and this guy was trained by the guy that trained him, trained basically KGB assassins for like many years, and he's Latvian. My friend is Latvian, but they were under the Soviet Union. They were all under the Soviet military, and I was sort of half learning. I know a little bit of Russian, and I said, yeah, I'm sure if I went to Russia, I'd be able to pick it up in a couple of months or a month or two or whatever. And he said to me, no, Giuseppe, why? All you need in to speak proper Russian is to have a name for a male genital, a name for female genital, and name for one of them going inside the other one. If you have these three words, you can join a Russian army, no problem. All your conversations will be all about that. So, maybe in the Russian army that would work, but it's a bit limiting anywhere else, I think. And Georgian James continues, I'm also working to cleaning my language after exposure to SG policies. Yeah, that's interesting. So there's a ripple effect. It's hello, Xenostart. I do enjoy Xenostart's comments on Social Galactic. They're quite funny. Woolly Ram, newspapers are an insult to humanity. There are illiterate bushmen that have set eyes on the written word who deserve an apology from journalists. That's very that's absolutely correct. And Cordell says, hail Grand Inquisitor. Hello, Cordell. I'm not the Rick you know. Okay, you're another Rick. Irish Pisano, hey brother, okay. Runner Bean. Have newspapers ever been a reliable source of information, or has it always been propaganda? I believe their history and how they came about was absolutely propaganda. And in fairness, I don't know if there was ever a newspaper for any meaningful length of time that was at all not propaganda. That is what they are. It is the nature of the beast. I know for a fact that, I've been involved or known about or either peripherally or directly involved in a few newspaper articles that came out at various times in various countries. Only one of them was about me specifically, and it was a good thing. It was a positive one. That was a long time ago, and that was a little local newspaper, and they got actually everything right. That was the only time I saw that happen. But certainly in the major newspapers where stories appeared that I was either involved or knew the people in it because I was working with them, or had some involvement in the story. In other words, I knew the reality of what actually happened. I was there when the events happened or whatever. They never, ever, ever got the story straight. And for a period of time in South Africa, my girlfriend was friends with a journalist, a very well educated girl of Zimbabwean origin, but raised in the UK, and then she became a journalist out in Cape Town. And I read some of the articles that she wrote, and we would meet up with her quite regularly and have dinner with her and whatever. And I'd be like, "What the hell did you write here? This is bullshit. You know it's bullshit. I know it's bullshit." And she's like, "Yeah, but I got a narrative to sell. That's what I got to do. That's what they pay me for." So they are professional liars. That's what they do. That's journalists. They're lowest form of life on earth. Um, except for lawyers and politicians, I guess. St. John Fisher says was known to swear a lot in his treatise against Luther. Luther himself was known to swear a lot. Constantly, really. He was extremely foul-mouthed. Okay. Hello, JB14. Life is better without newspapers. Absolutely correct. Yes, it is. And Escat da Silva says in the 1930s, the New York Times was burnt down. Andrew Pulitzer was fake news in the 19th century together with Hearst. And Xenostart says, catching up, abstaining from alcohol is going great right now. I do want to learn more about wine, but I need focus. Alcohol distracts. Yeah, and you're a young guy, so there's no need for you to addle your brain with booze, really. You're still young. You can do a lot of things, keep fit, whatever, to train, do something. Duranti, New York Times esteemed journalist, should have gotten the rope. Okay, I don't know who you guys are talking about, but yeah. So that was my little commentary on clean speech, in that I think it is overall a beneficial thing, and probably we should all strive to do a bit more of it. And if we don't need newspapers, we have /poll. There you go. Not that I've ever been there, but yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, and now if you want to cover any other topic, there was another topic I was thinking about, but I can't remember what it is now. I seem to have forgotten. Oh, a little side commentary about Gnosticism. But it's the same, like the whole Protestant thing. But Gnosticism is where you get these morons that come up with, I've got a brand new special secret knowledge. That's Gnosticism. If you're a Catholic, as a Catholic and as a Christian, you can't belong to secret societies, and certainly it is anathema for you to be a Freemason, of course, because that's Satanism. But there's no need for you to hide anything. If you're go for it. If you got questions, fire them out. If you're a Catholic, if you're a Christian, there's no need for you to hide anything. You can just tell the truth. There's no reason for you to, they're not persecuting us yet where we have to hide in the catacombs. At that point in time, fine. You might have to hide, you might have to be a bit careful or whatever, but certainly being a member of a secret society is not necessary. Wooly Ram says, have you found that your taste in music has changed after conversion? No. Mostly because I had a very strange life until about the age of my mid-20s, early 20s. I basically didn't have any music. I never really heard any music. I remember the first time, my first car, which was nicknamed Christine after the Stephen King thing, except mine was blue because it had 400,000 Ks on the clock and it was still going, and it was just dented and whatever, but just wouldn't die. And I put some music on in that car, and I can't remember what the song was, but I had to pull over because it was like, oh, man, I'm getting all these emotions and they're just too strong and I'm going to end up crashing because I can't focus on driving. I literally pulled over to the side of the road to listen to the rest of the song, and I was like, what the hell is that? And I was like like I said, early 20s by then. So my knowledge of music is pretty non-existent. I just listen to what I like hearing. And one thing that I noticed very early on is that I pay attention to the lyrics. So I think there's a sketch that a comedian does. I can't remember if it's I can't remember who it is. It might be. I don't think it was Eddie Murphy. I think it was. Oh, what's the other guy? Oh, it'll come to me anyway. He does a sketch where he goes, "Yeah, like women are, they listen to the beat and it's like nee nee nee, and they're dancing. But if you listen to the words, it's like foul language and like suck my dick, whatever." And I've always listened to the lyrics, so there's a lot of for me the lyrics are very important. They're more important probably than the music, and as a result of that, I've never really listened to songs that sort of drag you down, kind of thing, or that are, I hate rap. I've always hated rap. I hate metal. Always hated metal. They're just noise. They're not music. It's an absolute perversion of everything. Um, I saw the other day that Vox put somewhere that Wagner and Chopin were anti-Semitic. I love Wagner. I love Chopin. I'm ignorant of them, but I used to write to Chopin. When I left home in my mid-20s, I had pretty much nothing. I didn't have a fridge, but I had a futon in like one studio apartment, and I had these really expensive speakers that the guy gave me, and I used to listen to a CD player, which was actually my little CD Walkman that I had hooked up to these huge speakers. And I used to listen to Chopin when I wrote because I found it relaxing and cleansing. So no, my taste in music hasn't really changed. I would say it's gradually maybe changed a little bit in terms of as I got older, there has been a slight change, but only very slight. I still like the music that I used to listen to when I was 16, 17. In fact, today with my wife, we went to eat out, and the music that was playing in the place was all 80s songs, and I thought, I like the 80s. I think that was probably the best kind of music. And she was born in 81, so. But funnily enough, she's a fan of 80s music. She says, "Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you, but I also like music from the 60s." And I was like, "No, I don't. I hate music from the 60s and the 70s. I like some music from the 40s. I like music from the 50s and the 80s. I would say those are probably my best sort of songs are probably in there. And I don't know whether that's a result of familiarization or whatever, but no, I wouldn't say that my taste in music has changed at all, pretty much. I don't, but that's because I don't think I was affected by it, or rather, I was affected by it in the sense that I didn't like degenerate music to begin with anyway. So I don't think that that's done anything different. Okay, next question. AJ Rhino. Those of us baptized in the Novus Ordo, in order to join a Sede parish, do we need to get baptized again? If I were you, yes, I would, for the simple reason that you have to assume, there is a principle of prudence in Catholicism. You have to be prudent. And if something is suspect, then you have to assume the worst. Now, any Novus Ordo priest is suspect because as a Novus Ordo priest, they either absolutely do know about the infiltration of Vatican II, which is what you have to assume, or are so incompetent that they don't know about it. And then how on earth could you consider them being in any way anything other than criminally incompetent? So I would get another baptism. And you can discuss this with a Sede priest. You can discuss it with them and say, look, I'm worried about my original baptism. I think it was possibly invalid. I'm uncomfortable with it. And they can give you what they call, I think, is a baptism of like, it's kind of like a safety baptism. I was never baptized to begin, so I had the full-on baptism. But and if for whatever reason your Sede priest says no, whatever it counts, just remember that anybody can baptize you. An atheist can baptize you. All you need is the correct form, the words, and the correct intent. So if you've got a friend of yours that you trust, even if they're an atheist, say, look, it doesn't matter if you believe or not, have a good intent for me, make your intent be what I want to be. And then that's good enough. Now, those baptisms are supposed to be for emergency only, but better safe than sorry is the way I think about it. I hope I've answered your question. If not, just ask again. Mirkwood says it's amazing how simply the Kurgan can explain. Okay, thank you very much. I don't know what that's in reference to, but I'm glad if it makes you understand. AJ Rano says, I haven't finished your book yet, so I don't know if you address it there. I don't remember that I addressed it specifically, but I hope I've answered your question. AJ Rhino, new film called Mr. Jones, coming up about the Duranty cover-up on Ukraine. I don't know what people mean by the cover-up on Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine was fucking obvious to me that it was the Ukrainian Spring was absolutely funded by the United States. It was completely obvious. Were the charges brought against the Knights Templar true or false? Did they deserve to be dissolved? I don't know. That branch of history is so covered with like lies and partisan stuff. I do believe that originally the Knights Templar were founded for the correct reasons. But I've read all sorts of things. I've read things where there's a rumor that one of the knights or whatever, and I don't remember where I read this. It might have been in a book called The Knights Templar, written by some weird mystic guy who's very famous, and I forget his name. There's also there's a method of teaching that they teach kids based on this guy's theories or whatever. I forget his name. Hopefully it'll come to me. And I can't remember if it was in there or somewhere else. But anyway, where one of the Knights Templar, apparently they found like either a tomb where supposedly Jesus was, and apparently they found this like charred black body. But that sounded like bullshit to me, because there is no tomb where Jesus was buried, and so you wouldn't be able to find his body. And then if you did find his body, and saying, that it was some black guy, and we know what Jesus looked like because of the Turin shroud and whatever, and he was described as well. So because of that, they became sort of like bankers. Now it's true that they became kind of bankers and that they had a lot of wealth and power, but they were accused of sodomy and all sorts of things, which was a pretty common way of getting rid of people that you didn't like. But I don't know, is the short answer. I don't know whether the accusations of the Templars that they leveled on the Templars were true or not. I do know that their chief that was finally burnt at the stake cursed both the Pope of the time and the King of France, and they were both dead within a year of his burning. And they tortured that guy for like a fucking year or something, and he didn't recant. He basically was like, "Fuck you! I'm not agreeing to all this bullshit that you're saying I did." They were tortured to speak and to say that this or that happened, and so who knows? I don't know. I believe that they were originally a good group of people. I don't know if they got corrupted along the way. I think it's possible that at least some of them did get corrupted, but I also think it's quite possible that some of them held the line. And their chief guy, whose again name I forget, who got burnt at the stake, he sounded to me more like a guy who like held the line rather than somebody who went down the wrong path. And yes, Pew and Bear says, good point. Even if we speak the truth and they prosecute us for it, that is one of the best steps, approval from up high. Indeed, as I showed you guys last night, nec spec nec metu. That's the motto of the Sodalitium guys. And Sodalitium Pianum was based on the work of Benigni. Benigni was an uncle of the actor Benigni, who was a priest and who founded what they called the Catholic sort of secret society of investigators and assassins and Gestapo. And it was a group of priests that decided to start making to keep documents on Freemasons that had infiltrated the church already. So it was a good thing. It was a good guy. And nec spec nec metu means no hope, no fear. Without hope, without fear. And it's not a nihilistic, it's not we have no hope and no fear because we're doomed. No, it's not that at all. It's the opposite. Even without hope, you have no fear because you're Catholic. You know Jesus Christ, you know God. you're in the right. So even if they chop your head off, and a lot of Catholic martyrs have gone to their death, holding their head high in full dignity. And the somebody on Social Galactic, I think, or maybe it was on the comments yesterday, I can't remember, saying about the nuns that went to the guillotine singing, because they knew they were becoming martyrs. Irenaeus, who walked for a year and a half to the arena in Rome to be eaten by lions, who did it joyfully and writing letters along the way and being grateful that the emperor had condemned him to death by being eaten by lions, because he knew that that would make him a martyr and would show people how a proper Christian dies, without fear. And that converted probably more people than a bunch of Catholic warriors fighting to the last man would have. So, yeah, it's true. The Fisher sermon was called Confutatio against Luther, I believe. Oh, that's the sermon that had a lot of swearing, apparently. Runner Beam says, how important do you think it is to try and get the truth from history? Very, very important. I've been watching Rachel Fulton Brown's history videos, and there's so many competing narratives, it's hard to discern any truth. It's not that hard. It is hard the further back you go, but it's not that hard. And I think Rachel Fulton Brown does an excellent job of unfurling, let's say, the furled up lines. It really is pretty clear, especially when you've got the benefit of hindsight. For example, say in 1963, it was probably quite difficult to realize that heretics had completely taken over the Vatican. But now, 60 years later, it's absolutely obvious. Even in the late 60s and early 70s, it was probably quite confusing, especially even if you were in the middle of it. It was probably not completely obvious to you unless you were, one of the bishops involved or whatever. But if you were just your average priest in an outback kind of little parish, it's probably quite difficult. Most laymen probably completely unaware of what was really going on and just realized, well, something's not right, but didn't really look into it. Remember, the average person is half asleep through their life anyway, so it's not that difficult. I see that you carry on, Runner Beam, saying, especially for a non-scholar. Well, you know what a scholar is? Just somebody who's read more books. So carry on reading, man. A person that's had a PhD is just somebody who's read about 100 books on a topic at most. And I've done that for fun on multiple topics. So, reading is an essential life skill. Excuse me, but I'm getting hot. So you now get a little bit of, disrobing of the Kurgan. There you go. Get your screen caps ready. Oh. My little office does tend to get warm. Signature Entertainment release Mr. Jones in UK cinemas. Okay, you guys are talking about that film. Zenos Dart says, used to be a big-time metalhead. Letting go of it is hard for my taste, but it gets intermingled with Satanism too often. More Latin. Yeah, I actually, long before I was anywhere even near any kind of Christian or even thinking about Christianity at all, I always hated metal. It is, I think the correct word for it in Catholicism would be disordered. And disordered is a word that is used not lightly in Catholicism. When a priest says to you that somebody's sexuality is disordered, it means they're complete fucking degenerates and they're doing something really wrong. So it's it's absolutely unhealthy for your mind. There is no clarity in it. There's no cleanliness in it. It's basically sewage sound. You might as well listen to the gurgling of a toilet stuck with rats in it. It's about the same level of mental benefits that it's giving you listening to metal or rap, for that matter. It's just filth. It's just degradation. It's angst. What, like fucking angst is like new? It's just whiners, like losers. And look at the people that sing this shit. I mean, like, come on, man. You You want to put a Chopin or a Wagner against a fucking metalhead? No, 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 no. Let us not blaspheme. Hmm. There's too much music in public. I detest being forced to listen to music wherever I go. Try living in Brazil, buddy. Try going into a shopping center in Brazil. It's ubiquitous. It's literally everywhere. It's disgusting. Horse Mamba says, I'm a Baroque fan myself. Well, you see, the problem with Baroque is that Baroque was the beginning of the end, because Baroque was when the Protestants and so on, basically, you know, being essentially the work of Satan, they had a problem with beauty, truth, and justice, of course, and they had a problem with the beauty of the Catholic painters and Catholic cathedrals and so on. So they started trying to degrade it, and Baroque was the beginnings of that. And I always found Baroque a little bit disturbing, to be honest. I found it quite. There's just something about it that, like, there's a little bit of wrongness in there, and I don't know what it is, because I'm musically extremely ignorant. Although I did have a brief relationship with a girl that made me aware that I have an ear that is able to perceive music in a way that only about 15% of the population is able to perceive. And I was completely unaware of that until she told me that, as a result of my making some comments on people singing, that we walked past a woman that was singing, and I was like, oh, that's I can't remember. I think I said, like, I must have said something new, because I said, oh, she's completely out of tune or something. That's just horrible on the ears. And she stopped and she looked at me and she goes, why do you say that? Because look at the people listening, they're all, and I was like, yeah, no, that I find that uncomfortable. It's just, she's not good. And she said, you know, that what you're telling me now, only about 15% of the population can hear what you can hear, you know. And she knew, because she was one of them, and she studied music, she was a professional singer and so on. And then I honestly, I didn't believe her there and then. Then she started to make me listen to various bits of music, and she would tell me before, she'd know before how I would react. And to the point where she, like, I think she wrote it down at one point, so that I didn't think she was cheating. And yeah, she demonstrated to me that I've got that ability to pick up quality of music, but I don't even know how it works. So it's just, I either like it or I don't like it, sort of thing. And Baroque always struck me as having a little bit of wrongness in it, kind of like Indian music. There is some Indian music that is generally very, also, by the way, but both Baroque and Indian music are quite good for helping you put people into a trance if you're going to do a hypnotic induction. But I dislike those kind of things, because they strike me as having a wrongness in it. So I've never used them, and I don't really listen to them. I can listen to them for a short time, but it's like, it strikes me as something not quite right there. And I'm wondering, probably that might be a reason for it. But offer Dragon Force as a possible exception to the noisiness of metal. Corpicani is also pretty good. I don't know what that is, so. Rakiro 6 says, I think it's called conditional baptism if you're not baptized yet, or so goes the formula. Yeah, that's quite correct. Thank you, Rakiro. It's a conditional baptism. It's a baptism to sort of make sure that you're baptized. Hello, Dances with Logos. The high priestess of the Kurgan cult of personality has arrived. A good rule of thumb regarding history: the narrative presented in school, university, and pop media is a lie. That's Wooly Ram again with, yes, again, very good and obvious piece of wisdom that we might miss if you hadn't mentioned it. Mirkwood says, I was referring to your explanation of Gnosticism before. I'd love to hear more about it. Okay, let me just get through a couple more, because I just want to get to. Just remind me if I don't come back to it. I'll try to come back to it. When they correct an uncertain baptism, would a priest say something like, in case this baptism was done incorrectly, then conduct the normal procedure? Yeah. Lebenstraum number 3 of Liszt is moving. It's odd how it evokes feeling of love, as it does not have any words, only music, only beauty of the composition. Penguin Bear, I am going to write that one down. Let me just write that down. There is a piece of music that I listened to. Number 3 by Liszt. I'm going to try and listen to that. It's a piece of music that was, I'm going to find it because I have it on my phone. I downloaded it when I was in Kazakhstan. It was interesting times, Kazakhstan, put it that way. And I was being driven to the airport by a very nice man in a very luxurious vehicle because, again, it was kind of, like I said, weird times. And he had it playing on the radio, and I used the Shazam to find out what it was, and I just bought it there and then. And I've listened to it since, and it gives me a peace, and I find it quite interesting. But other people that I've tried to make it listen to, like my wife said, oh my God, this is suicidal music. If I listen to that shit for 5 minutes, I'm going to slit my wrists. I don't find that at all. It's called Jivan Gasparian Quartet. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let's see if you can. There you go. That's how it's written, and it's quite long. It's a few minutes long. I have one of my favorite songs is "Brothers in Arms" by Dire Straits. And again, people say, "Oh my God, this is kind of like depressing." I don't find it depressing. I find it, I don't know. I don't know that inspiring is the right word, but certainly evocative, put it that way. And I like all sorts of things. Another one, the only song I know off by heart is actually "Wayfaring Stranger" by 16 Horsepower, which I heard at the end of a documentary on like random murders in Arkansas or some fucking evil shit. And again, I stopped the documentary to the credits to see what the song was, and then I got it. So yeah, I've got pretty, I guess, eclectic type of tastes, I suppose. But you're welcome, and Scene11 thanks me for answering his question. Jordan James says the Knights Templar were treated very unfairly. That is without a doubt. The French king owed them a lot of money and was worried about their influence. This was the main reason they killed them. Yeah, I would say that is factually correct. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Whether there was something else more than that, I don't know. I'm sure there was the odd Knight Templar that became a bad guy, but I don't know. I think they started out definitely the right intentions, and then they got pretty powerful pretty quick. But why that is, whether they did anything wrong or not, it might just be that they really were good guys, and they were just really good at their finances. Like the monasteries, which started out in the 4th, 5th century, and became very wealthy simply because there's a lot of guys all working communally and producing communally and selling it and keeping the money and reinvesting it, and they became very very wealthy. They weren't doing anything wrong. And of course, wealth attracts all sorts of flies, parasites, and so on. Xenostart says, Kurgan, what is your list of priorities in dealing with enemies of the church, from Norco-Satanists to the clueless Norco-Churchians and then of everyone else? My list of priorities is, of course, the Norco-Churchians. They are number one, top of my hit list. If it were up to me and I had a big enough army, or even just a convinced enough army, I would march them straight into the Vatican and turf them all out. And if I had enough power to do it, that I could do it, keeping most of my men alive, I would literally burn those fuckers at the stake in St. Peter's Square. That would be my way of addressing the usurpation of the Catholic Church, because they are pedophiles. They would have their trials. They would all have their trials. It would all come out what they're involved in. And anyone that is related to anything to do with kids, abusing, raping kids, they'd be burnt at the stake. And Bergoglio would definitely be burnt at the stake because he was absolutely involved with people that do that shit, and he's protected people that do that shit, which is just as guilty. As far as I'm concerned, you protect a pedophile, you burn on the stake right next to him. So they are not my number one enemy because for multiple reasons. First of all, they've attacked the one true Holy and Apostolic Catholic Church, which is ultimately the most important entity on the planet, and we have to defend it. So they absolutely come first and foremost. In terms of the sleeping churchians, I don't consider them enemies. I consider them dupes. They've been fooled. And some very intelligent people have been fooled. I don't consider them necessarily stupid or ignorant or even lazy sometimes. Sometimes they just don't know better. They've been lied to since birth. So it's not necessarily their fault. And my intent is to spread the word and wake them up so that they can help me get that army and, and throw out all the fake priests. But I'm absolutely an absolutist in that respect, in that I do not believe that any so-called Novus Ordo priest is redeemable. If you are a Novus Ordo priest, get the fuck out. Get absolutely the fuck out. Or if you are going to try and stay a Novus Ordo priest, you redo your whole seminary from beginning to end. You take your vows, you become an ordained cleric, and then you spend the rest of your days in a monastery repenting and atoning for your sin of having become a heretic. That's it. And, but what's the point in that? Well, you can go into the monastery and plant those potatoes and make the monasteries become a good thing again. Because that's it. You're never going to be teaching anybody. You're never going to be allowed to give out the sacraments. You're never going to have authority over anyone. That's the only way that I would say that the so-called Novus Ordo priests are redeemable. Not a single one of those people has to be kept or retained as a so-called Catholic. They're not. They're Satanists working for Satanists. Whether they know it or not is irrelevant to me. They're all, again, prudence. So they're absolutely enemy number one. The slumbering churchians, they just need to be woken up. In terms of order of danger after that, the general zeitgeist of Protestantism absolutely needs to be rejected. And the stream that I did the other day with about Archibear and so on made me aware of just how pernicious Protestantism has been, because it's slowly leaked into the consciousness of almost everybody. So a revival of Catholicism is, of course, the answer, and proper Catholicism and hardcore Catholicism and very masculine Catholicism. No, none of this fakery. Oh, well, turn the other cheek. No, fuck you. Get out of my way. I'm a Catholic. Fuck off. Part the seas of your Protestant bullshit. I don't accept any of it. Which leads me to another point I wanted to discuss about ecumenism. And, people that say, well, as long as we're all Christians. Well, no, but you're not. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Christian. You're not. If you're not a Catholic, you're not a Christian as far as I'm concerned. Now, that doesn't necessarily make you an evil person, but it does make you wrong. And you're saying, oh, well, no one is perfectly correct. Yeah, you're right. Even the best Catholic is in error. Absolutely. But we're in less error than a Protestant. But now you can say, oh, but you're saying that Catholics are only the best people. No, there are some valid Catholics which are assholes. They're not necessarily good people, but they're valid Catholics. And there are some Protestants which are much better human beings, but they are not properly Christian. Okay? And that is a fact. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is, It would be a lot easier. It would be a lot nicer if we could just say, oh, well, that guy recognizes Jesus as Lord, so that's it. We're all happy, saved. No, it doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way. That's why the Catholics used to persecute heretics that insisted and continued in being heretics. Keep in mind that the Catholic Church has got this paradoxical thing where if you're a heretic and you try and spread your heresy, you can go all the way to getting burnt at the stake. But if you just don't want to be a Catholic, no one's going to hang you for it. You can't force anybody to become a Catholic. We're not Muslims. It is illegal. It is wrong. It is against the dogma of the church to force somebody to become a Catholic is against the dogma of the church. You're not allowed to do it. It's wrong. It's an absolute sin. It's like forcing somebody into marriage or rape. You're not allowed to do it. But that doesn't mean that you tolerate heretics coming into your town and crapping in your street. No. You don't want to be a Catholic, get the fuck out. Stay out of our citadel. If you come into our citadel, you behave as a polite guest at all times. And don't you dare say anything against our belief system, our religion, because then get the fuck out. And that is how it should be. And we need to take that approach to Protestant heresy. But, again, you have to be wise in how you go about it, because there's very little good comes of you just shouting, "You're a heretic," without proof. That's why Believe had such an impact. Believe is like a small book. It's 98 pages in relatively, large font. But it just gave the basics. It just gave the very basic, simple, direct truths that are obvious and that anybody can look up for themselves. You don't have to take my word for it. And I put in enough references that people that want to do more can do more. And then the second book, this one is the book for the, for the people that really want to learn more, that want to get the stuff in detail. This is the book that you should throw at the head of the Novus Ordo fake priests when they tell you, "But I'm a Catholic." No, you're not. You're a faker. You're a liar. And I've proven that on Social Galactic with that Padre Gio faker who now just ignores my comments at him because he knows he's a heretic. I've demonstrated to everyone that followed it 2 months, like, back and forth. So that's, yeah. But Protestants look at what's happening in America. Every church is collapsing. I'm getting, the Dread Ilk on Facebook. They're all over the place. "Oh, my church is this. Oh, my church is failing. Oh, this church is failing. Oh, we had to leave that church." All your fake churches are collapsing. All of them. And, because Orthodoxy has got quite a long history, there's a lot of Americans LARPing themselves into Orthodoxy. Or even that cool guy, James Fox Higgins. He's like, "Oh, Orthodoxy." And like I mentioned the other day, people like that, I think part of the reason they do that is because there's safety in numbers. "Oh, the Orthodox are pretty cool. They've been there since the beginning. Well, there's 300 million of them or 200 million or whatever. That's a pretty big number. We're safe there." It's not about numbers. You forget that Christianity was started by 4 women and 11 scared men. And it took over the world. So it's not about numbers, it's about truth. So I don't care if I'm the last one standing. If I think that, the Catholic Church in its current sede-privationist state is the truth, then I'll stay there. I will stay there till I'm dead. If that's the thing I think is close to the truth, that's what you should do. And now, the Kurgans are sede-privation, so I'm going to become one. No. Do your own work. That's why I write these books. That's why I write this stuff. So you don't have to take my word for it. It's all in black and white, just like the Catholic Church. You can go through it, and if you find errors in it and you think that I'm talking shit, lies, find out. Do the work. It's not that hard, and it's important, right? It's about your soul, so it's worth looking into. And then, of course, at the top of my list, probably even above the Novus Orchians, are, of course, the pedophile elite. But they are kind of the same people because it's, they're absolutely pedophile, child-eating, child-molesting, child-raping, murderous, evil, evil, evil scum. Those people absolutely, they're top of my list. And I certainly hope that I could meet a whole bunch of them in the Gobi Desert when, where there's a nice pre-dug trench of large proportions. But yeah, and you gotta rail against it, the whole pedophile stuff. You gotta go at it hard now. Now's the time. You gotta go at it hard because those are the guys that are trying to put muzzles on your face, trying to vaccinate you to death, and that stuff. So I hope that answers your question. George and James says they were tortured until some of them confessed to the crimes they were accused of. Yeah, I know that that's also a fact. Dances with Logos says amen. Not sure to what, but the only current, P1 Bear says the only current thing that we may call hidden knowledge, gnosis, as opposed to lies, are those to lies, and those who bought into lies, I'm guessing, is the truth covered by those lies. This is hidden because covered by tons of lies. Yeah. Let's inverse inversion. Yes. Inversion is a talent that I have and that I use. I mentioned it in people, young guys that are looking for wives and say, oh, but there aren't any good Catholic wives. Yeah, there are not. The process used to be, well, you meet a nice Catholic girl, you get introduced to a nice Catholic girl, you court her for some time, so you get to know each other, you spend some time together with your clothes all on to discuss various things and talk about certain stuff, and then you get closer, and eventually you recognize that, yeah, she's the one for you, and she recognizes the same, and then you get engaged, then you get married, then you have sex, and then you have children, and so on. It's inverted. Now they've broken all of that. The Satanic and the Protestants and whatever have created this milieu where that cannot happen anymore. So invert the inversion. You start by fucking them, then you ask their name, then you find out if they're worth talking to, and yes, in doing that you're covered in sin and whatever, but it is a way out. And I'm not saying it's good for everybody. There are some people that can go through that stuff. There are some people who can't. And those of you who can't, don't try it. Those of you who can't, again, in the Bible, it tells you there are some people that are eunuchs by choice. And what does that mean? It means people that are not given to having sex or wanting sex with women or what have you. And not because they're gay, but just because their interest is elsewhere, and it is perhaps in God. I believe that Wooly Ram mentioned that he is such a person. Clearly you can tell just from speaking at him that Wooly Ram is not gay at all, but he is interested in becoming a monk, or like take my priest, the guy who baptized me. There's clearly not even a hint of any kind of feminine, gay behavior or anything like that. But he chose to be a priest because God is important. And that guy had an engineering, a degree in bioengineering. He's not a slouch. He's not a guy that just like, oh, he believed in some superstitious shit. No, these are intelligent men that have chosen the path of serving God. More power to them. I will get back to the Gnosticism in a second. Sorry, but shopping depresses. I'd rather have some death metal than at least good for battle. No, death metal is not good for battle. It is a disordered mind. It's like, oh, we're going to get chaos, we're going to get rage. You have to manufacture fake rage to be good in battle. That's bullshit. A guy that's in a rage, in a fight, good, I'm glad. He's going to make mistakes. Pissing a guy off just before you get into a rumble with him, that's a tactic. No, don't manufacture fake rage. The guy who wins the fight is most often the guy who keeps calm, keeps his head about him, keeps moving. Nick Thorbear says death metal and black metal are satanic, psychotic rubbish. I agree. Blind Guardian is one of the few bands I still listen to. Metal, but very skilled, and Lord of the Rings Dune-themed lyrics. Okay, I don't know them, so I can't comment. Horse Mumbler says, interesting take, makes sense in historical context. Baroque is Portuguese for flaw, imperfection, and referred particularly to irregularly formed pearls. There you go. Horse Mumbler, that's why it always sounded a bit wrong to me. And I only found out about the history of Baroque music quite recently, actually. I didn't know that. But I always had this thing about when people said, oh, Baroque is great. I was like, no, it's not. The same with architecture. I mean, when I was working in Italy and Kazakhstan, there was a firm of architects that I sort of became acquainted with, and went to their offices, and they were all like, oh, you're the guy that's getting us this work and whatever. And they were all pretty friendly. Most of them were quite really nice people. A couple of good friends I still have from there. One of the owners a complete dick, but whatever. And one of the guys, they asked me, so what are your architectural tastes? And I said, well, I'm a little bit more classical. And he goes, oh, so you mean and I can't remember what he said, but he said a period, like, says, oh, so you mean more like the 80s type of buildings? I'm like, no. I really sort of think that really anything after the Middle Ages should just be burned to the ground. And you know, we should keep some of the old Roman stuff and some of the good, nice Catholic churches that they built. And anything after that really is just filth and should be just bulldozed. They'll look at me like, oh, you know, and the hate of this guy was a postmodernist who that's probably why he was a dick. He had no taste even as an architect. Some of the melodic metal bands make fun music. I don't know of any. I can't think of the word metal and melodic in the same sentence. Just no. But there might be. I just haven't really come across. One that I can tolerate is the baby metal that Vox listens to. For example, like Karate or whatever. But I have to be in a specific mood, and then it's only because of the videos. Because the videos are very stylized and quite visually, they have a meaning. But yeah, without the videos, I try to listen to one without the videos, and it's like, nah, don't really like this. But what do you think of Bach? I like Bach. Yeah, I like Bach a lot, but again, I'm ignorant, you know, so I can't tell you which piece of Bach and do I like all of Bach. I can't answer that. But yes, I do like Bach. But if we're talking favorite classical piece, then Moonlight Sonata is mine. Oh, I think I've heard that one. I don't even know the names of the classical pieces that I like, so I don't know. That might be one of them. I've definitely heard the name, but I can't think which one it is. The Templars were also experts at moving and hiding their wealth, as they had so much practice doing so, moving their funds from Europe to the East to support their original mandate. Yeah. It was once they lost their mandate that they lost a lot of their support and made enemies back home in Europe. Indeed. Michael Peckar says, have you heard of Lubomir Melnik? His music is pretty good. He's a pianist. No, I'm unaware of him. Wooly Ram says, what would you call an order of warden monks? They are, after all, the only type of religious we can trust to guard Norco priests. Well, the Japanese have a name, and actually that was the name of my very first company in South Africa. The Japanese have a name for what they call warrior monks. They call them Sohei. And you'll notice that this book is published by, there you go. And my logo for my original company was just a circle without the cross in the middle. You know, now I'm Catholic, so I got the cross in the middle. Haven't changed, really. Xenostart says, Catholic or get the fuck out. Indeed. Horse Mumbler says, forget staying alive. It might be enough to get into the vaults, fort up and scan plus upload the books hoarded there. That would be a last stand for the ages. Oh yeah, into the vault of the Vatican, yeah. No, I get it. You know, if we did storm the Vatican, staying alive might not be the priority, but you have to have some continuity. If you take over the Vatican, but then you all get slaughtered, what have you achieved? You've just taken out the so-called symbol of the Catholic Church. If instead you take it out, and you can at least last long enough to put in a proper pope and say, this is why we've done it. This is a real priest. Even if then, you know, if you could do that, and then you reinstated the whole Vatican with proper priests and proper bishops and proper valid pope, and then you gave all yourself up to the civic authorities, but that would also be wrong. It would be wrong to do that, I think. But I suppose that would be a powerful statement if you said, look, we've removed these imposters, these fakers and whatever, and now we give ourselves up. The problem with that is one of the reasons that the Catholic Church fell and fell and fell and continued to fall and then got infiltrated and continued to get infiltrated is because the military arm of the church militant, which are warriors, they're the knights, you know, they're the old barons, they're the kings, the emperors, the fighters that fought for Catholicism, the soldiers, the footmen, which were Catholic, but were just laymen. Those guys stopped existing. Those guys stopped fighting for Catholicism. Those guys were disarmed, disbanded, effeminized. Those guys stopped being able to carry the machine guns and saying, no, fuck you. I'm not giving up my weapons. I'm not giving up my sword. I'm a knight of the Catholic Church. I'm a knight in my own right. I'm a nobleman, and I'm allowed and I'm entitled to protect my lands, my people, my family, and my religion. And that's another one of the things that I think we should reinstate as soon as possible. The thing is, you've got to change the mentality of people in order to change the rules, to change the laws. Right now, being a Catholic is a completely rebellious act, of course. There was a time when being a Catholic was the norm. And so if you did take over the Vatican, you did put in proper clerics, and then you kind of gave yourself up, you'd be removing the military arm of Catholicism that had achieved that. You then just disbanding them again or destroying them. That's not good. Nothing more pathetic than Norcos using V2 to say that there's salvation outside of the Catholic Church. Indeed. And that brings me back to ecumenism, which brings me back to Gnosticism. This whole notion that Protestants have of like, no, let's all be friends. No. There's a reason why as Catholics you're not supposed to pray together with non-Catholics. There's a reason why you're not supposed to go into their fake churches. In fact, as a Catholic now, you cannot go into a Norco church because it's been desecrated and it's become now sort of, you can't go and pray there. I mean, I have done, and I continue to do perhaps from time to time when I feel like it, just because fuck you, that used to be a Catholic church and you've desecrated it now, but I know what it was, and I'm not here praying with you people. I'm not here attending your mass. I'm not here your fake mass. I'm not here listening to your priest or confessing to your fake priests. No, I go in there by myself, and I'll do something, I'll do my prayer or whatever. But that's that's me. I'm not saying that you should do that, but there's a reason why ecumenism is wrong, because it's again very simple concept. But why? A guy is a good guy. How much sewage do you want in your ice cream before you stop eating it? Let's say you have a full glass of ice cream, and I just put 1 drop of sewage on top of it. Is that okay for you to eat now? Would you give that to your child? It's just 1 drop, 1 tiny drop of raw sewage. Just a tiny bit of toilet paper that's been up somebody's butthole. Let's put it in. Would you feed that to your kids? I wouldn't. I wouldn't eat it myself. I wouldn't give it to anybody else to eat. So why would you dilute something that is a little bit more important than ice cream, the truth, the ultimate truth? Why would you dilute it with anything else? It's hard enough to keep the truth alive and well, but you want to dilute it? No, it's wrong. Oh, hello, Shaka Mambutu, our Muslim infiltrator. I should have a show with Shaka Mambutu. I'll probably get him killed though. Shaka, where do you live? Tell us where you live so that I don't get you killed. Maybe personal bias. This is LS16. Maybe personal bias, but I think young prots are prime for conversion. Grew up prot once the contradictions and nonsense were shown to me, it became intolerable. I've got to say, there's an even split, roughly speaking, of the people that have written to me and that told me they're converting to proper Catholicism. I would say about, not quite half are nominal Catholics, like full church and Catholics, and an equal number are ex-Protestants. And then there's a smattering of all sorts of other things like Orthodox and, whatever, complete atheists and so on. But yeah, it's about an even split. I would say that's probably not wrong of you to say. They're tired of the bullshit, Dances with Logos, 98 pages in relatively large font. Post-literate age. Indeed. Indeed, Dances with Logos. But, for those of you who can still read, this one is a normal-sized font, it's not too slow, not too small. And for those of you who can still read, those 6 of you on the planet, it's there. One of our local mosques is having a Halloween. Halloween. That's funny, man. That's kind of interesting because it means that the Muslims are being infiltrated by concepts that are essentially Christian. Rick says, what advice would you give to someone, me, who has started to believe in God a while back? There are no Christians in my life. There is a barrier for me just to go to church in me. I understand that extremely well because I was absolutely there. I'm going to tell you a little story. Russian guy from Sistema told me. But my first suggestion to you, Rick, is if you have not read Believe, get Believe. It's a little book. I don't have it here, but just Google my name, Filotto, on Amazon, and it'll come up. And get Believe. It's a short little book that will help you. It's helped a lot of people, and it's written specifically for people like you because I wrote it for the people that I used to be. I think I speak your language. But here's the thing. Here's an interesting thing. When I was like heavy into training of the Russian martial art, I went to Toronto to train with Vladimir Vasilyev, and he spent quite a lot of time with me. I don't know why he just, sensed or whatever liked me or whatever he sensed that I wanted to learn. And he took quite a lot of time with me. I did some private lessons with him. He's really, really good. And then he said to me, come, let's just sit and talk for a bit. I was like, okay. So we went into his office, and as we sat down, I saw, something that happened to me. I talked about seeing auras and stuff, and it's a skill that anybody can learn. So this is not even woo-woo shit, right? Literally, I can teach how to see auras to anyone in about 10 minutes. Yeah. Out of 100 people in a class once, only one guy couldn't see them, and he had a bit of a mental block about it. So it's not a difficult thing to do. But when he was walking around the desk to go and sit in his chair, I could see he had like these three beings or whatever behind him, and I was like, fuck, I've never seen three behind one guy. I've seen one, I've seen two, but never. And he looks at me and he goes, what are you looking at? And I was like, I did not, it's just the Russian trainer guy. I just like kept quiet. I was like, nothing. He looks at me and goes, oh, you can see auras. And I was like, yeah, a little bit. He goes, yeah, don't worry about those three guys. It's fine. Just sit down. Like, the fuck did he know that? So I sat down, and then he goes, oh, so tell me, are you Christian? And I was like, no, I'm not baptized. I'm nothing. And he said to me, listen, I want you to do me a favor. When you go back home, can you go to church? Just go to church and pray. And I said, yeah, I can go to church, but to pray what? I don't know what to pray. What must I say? And he said to me, ask to be forgiven. You must forgive yourself. And I was like, I felt really uncomfortable. I was like, forgive myself for what? I don't even know if I've done anything to ask forgiveness for. He goes, listen, you, the type of guy that you are, if three men come in here now with guns and knives and they shoot me and they try and kill, you would fight. You wouldn't give up. You would fight. Even if you don't have a weapon and they're already, you would fight that, right? I know, I can feel it. I look at you, you're the kind of guy, you're not going to stop. You're going to fight or die or, but you're not going to give up. And I was like, well, I hope so, He says, yeah. So that wouldn't scare you. I'm like, well, I'm not saying I want it to happen, And he goes, yeah, but you know what I mean. But now, to go inside the church and to bend your knee and say, please forgive me, that you can't do. Why? It's just a building. It's just some words. Why is it so difficult to do that? And like, I felt it, It was like, fuck. And it's like deep down, what it was is like, you don't feel like you're deserving of forgiveness, so you're not deserving of asking for it. And I said, but I don't even know that, what am I supposed to ask forgiveness for? I don't know that I've done anything wrong, what? And he goes, just do me a favor. When you go back, go to a church. Go and do that. And I went to an Orthodox church and I did what he said, just because I thought, well, fuck it, I can't do it. That didn't change me. It didn't make me into a Christian or anything. But it's an interesting little story, right? Like, why can't you do that? You've got this like resistance, right, to do that. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. And what you're rejecting, by the way, what you're resisting is the fakery, the bullshit. You've not known a proper church. You've not known a proper priest. All you've seen are lies and weakness and deception and fraud, pederastry. The worst kind of people on earth have been the representatives of what you think is the church. So that's why you have resistance, because your heart is good and you don't want to be associated with anything like that. So yeah, of course you have that rejection. Fake churches are being broken down by external and internal pressure. Good, thanks God, indeed. Pion Bear says it's really quite beautiful. It is. It is beautiful. Satanists have crept into Islam. Shaka, I'm sorry to break your bubble, buddy, but you know that book that the guy got a fatwa for called Satanic Verses? Do you know what that's about? Because Muhammad actually got spoken in the ear to by by Satan. You know, Islam was always satanic from the beginning. You know, look at how they conquer people. Look at how they convert people. You know why Islam means peace? Because after you've killed everybody that disagrees with you, you will have peace. And conversion at the point of a sword is accepted in Islam. You know, it's always been satanic. It causes cognitive dissonance. Absolutely, of course it does. If you read the Quran, it's yeah. Woolly Ram is based. Very interesting fellow. He is indeed. Winged Hussar sings Bogodurtsa chant song, asking for a support of Mother of God. Highly recommended this version. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to write that one down. But yeah, the Ave Maria or whatever is Bogorodska. Don't know how you pronounce it. Jordan James, if you don't mind me asking, what is your job within the construction industry? I don't mind you asking, but I'll basically look after the financial aspect of things. Contracts, finances, but I studied engineering, so I'm a bit unusual in that field because I actually know about physical construction quite a bit. Sabaton, the Last Stand song, is about the Templars. Yeah, it is. I think I've heard that. It's not too bad. Baron von Blair says, I thought it was about the Swiss Guard, or were they the attackers? Oops, yes, the Swiss Guard. I stand corrected. Okay. They make an effort to remind normies of history. I've learned some things from their music. Attack of the Dead Men tells an inspiring story. That is Xenostart. I don't know the songs they're talking about. So, David Lawrenson says, what do you think of Rodney Stark's opinion that the Roman Empire was at best a pause in the rise of the West? He makes a pretty decent argument. If you think about it, the Roman Empire lasted for 800 years. And you can't really say that they changed a great number of things in terms of technological advancements or so on. So, again, if you've read his book, How the West Won, he makes a pretty decent case for it there. I would say that is mostly correct. You know, these are big picture stuff, you know, and like some autists, a couple of autists on Social Galactic that like, Catholicism didn't invent science. Yes, it did. You know, big picture scenario. Now you're telling me that, oh, but there's one guy who wasn't Catholic and he figured out how to, you know, use the square or something. Whatever. You know, that's not the point. You're looking at the big picture. It is Catholicism that civilized the planet and that invented the scientific method. It was Catholics. It was usually Catholic monks and Catholic priests and bishops that did it for the most part. Woolly Ram says, this ties into what I hope to talk about for our next stream, Ordos Monastics and 3D thinking. Yes, let's have that. We will have that as for our next stream. Conditional on when my little daughter might be born. Let's set it for next Friday at the usual time, Woolly Ram. Ping me an email just to remind me. And Baron von Blair says, I'm unloading 3,500 gallons of sewage at this moment. I don't envy you your job, mate. Shaka Mambuto says, what is the possibility that Islam was created by the Jews to further divide and conquer the people to adopt Satanism? No. That's, I don't know where you would have got this kind of idiotic concept, but no, Islam was not invented by the Jews. It was started by that crazy mass murdering pedophile that you guys think is a prophet. I'm from Canada, though. I normally remove CA and replace it with gay. Well, that's good. It's good that you know that everything gay went to Canada and concentrated itself in the Prime Minister there. But good, if you're in Canada, you probably won't get beheaded right away if if we have a stream where I ask you about your religion and so on. I don't know whether we'd get banned by YouTube or get a fatwa put on our both our heads. I don't know. Maybe we should think about it before we do it. But Unseen11 says, Kurgan, I enjoy your book Reclaiming the Catholic Church. I'm sorry, but Amazon isn't letting me write a review for it as I haven't spent enough money on it. What? My brother-in-law has expressed interest in reading it. Oh, I don't know what that means. What do you mean by you haven't spent enough money on it? I think Amazon lets you buy a book and write a review. Did you steal it? I don't mind if you did steal it. I'm just curious as to what that means. My brother-in-law has expressed interest in reading it as he laughed out loud after reading a few pages. Quite a few people have told me that. That is the intent. It's to try and make it interesting as well as educational, of course. Shaka, go back to your own country then. Leave the Canadians to it. Okay, owners of this place hate me and banned my last account. In Sidk, actually, Western Canadian. All right. Mirkwood says, Shaka Mahmud, I think this is far-fetched since Islam persecuted Jews heavily since the creation of it. Indeed. Michael Pecker says, Alberta is the best nation inside Canada. Yes, Alberta will be independent of the end of the 20s. Okay. I'm thankful to God I'm in Western Alberta, the only conservative province. True, must be in the bathroom. Okay, I don't know. Escadrilla says China investigated what made Western society what it was. They found the large domestic economy and Christianity were the key factors. Yeah, the USA is not Christian. The USA is a Freemasonic country. It's the first Freemasonic country that was founded, created, and funded by Freemasons. So, spent enough money on Amazon. I don't know what that means. If you bought the book, I think you can write the review, right? I don't know, unless they've changed the rules. I don't know. I haven't written a review in a while, but it would be an honor to come on the stream. Okay, Shaka, maybe we should arrange that. We might do a double one. We will have a Muslim and a Jew on the stream. I don't know if we can do it together. That would be interesting. But yeah, Shaka, drop me an email. You should be able to find my email without too much trouble if you've got an IQ above room temperature. And then we could try and set it up. Runner Beans is a music recommendation, an Irish Catholic folk group singing about Holy Week. They're called Celi the Collective. Beautiful, thoughtful, and uplifting. Okay, I'm gonna write that down, although I wonder, they're probably Novus Ordo type of Catholics, but whatever. Right, to get back to Gnosticism, you thought I'd forgotten, didn't you? Gnosticism is, well, almost anything is Gnosticism, but the classical description of Gnosticism is a fake religion basing itself on Christianity that basically says there's a demiurge, an evil god that runs this planet, but we know that Satan has got the dominion of this planet. And then there is another sort of far away removed god that's got nothing to do with this planet. And the God of the Old Testament, the God of the Bible, is actually this demiurge, is actually this evil guy. And all the knowledge of true enlightenment, where you become kind of like Jesus was and able to do miracles and walk through walls and what have you, is all secret knowledge that you have to acquire through these secret ways. The best description of Gnosticism is the Rosicrucians, which, by the way, I was invited to join along with the Freemasons. I was invited to join years ago, and I've had a weird hobby for a long time of investigating all sorts of weird cults and sects. I was asked to join the Dianetics people. I was asked to join the Rosicrucians. I was asked to join the Freemasons, and I rejected all of them. I refused all of them. And the Rosicrucians, the guy that was trying to recruit me, I think he was a genuine guy. I don't think he was a knowing Satanist. He was just like, oh, it's cool, and there's like you can learn some stuff about how to see auras and how to do these magnetic things, and I was like, yeah, dude, I can do that shit without having to do any of your weird shit. I didn't say that, but I already knew how to see auras and stuff, and I think a lot of it came from training really hard in martial arts. And if you train really hard at anything physical, when you're doing it a lot, a lot, a lot, you start to have somewhat mystical experiences, at least in martial arts, I think, because it's so focused on fighting and combat and edge of limit type experiences. Um, a lot of people that have been in war and in long-term sort of warfare that was danger, where they were like whatever in a trench for like weeks at a time. A lot of those people have had what I would call spiritual or somewhat mystical experiences, usually always positive, that helped them, sometimes that saved them, and so on. So that's about. But Gnosticism is essentially a group of people, they pervert Christianity. Simon the magician in the New Testament, that's a Gnostic. Gnostics are people that are like, well, actually, what Jesus was really saying, or like that idiot Mike Lowry that goes on the James Fox Higgins channel, and I really like James, but the other guy is a complete moron. He's, the Book of Urantia thinks that Jesus came from a spaceship, and it's just. And the whole Uruntia book, Urantia, whatever they call it, Uranus, whatever they call that stupid fake religion, was created by somebody, theosophy. Do you know what theosophy is? Madame Blavatsky. What was Madame Blavatsky? A con woman. She was a con woman, a Russian con woman that, wore turbans and made like fancy things and did seances and then was like, yes, theosophy, the study of God is really here. And she mixed and matched all sorts of things, talked about the rays, the color rays, and the 7 colors all represent different aspects of the cycles of reincarnation in the soul and blah blah blah. And she mixed all sorts of shit, created her own fake religion, just like L. Ron Hubbard, Dianetics, another fake religion. I mean, do you know what the principal pinnacle secret point that you get to find out at the end of Scientology when you become a level 0 thetan whatever? The Zimu, an ancient galactic overlord, nuked the whole planet, blew it up, and splintered us into tiny little pieces of souls. And now we all have to like get back together into one big soul, and then we're all happy, live ever after. It's just absolute rubbish. And so Madame Blavatsky invented theosophy, which is a fake religion designed to scam a bunch of people, and there's still people now talking about it. And basically this the Book of Urantia, which I picked up when I was in my mid-20s, I think, and I read about 20 pages of it. I was like, this is complete and utter retardated bullshit. Was created by a Protestant that, thought, hey, wait a minute. Joseph Smith convinced a bunch of people that you could pull gold plates out of a tuba hat and look at them with special goggles that nobody else could take a look at. And it was angelic language that only he could see. Nobody else was allowed to look at these gold plates or anything else. And he created a whole new religion called Mormonism. Worked for him. I'm going to do the same. I'm going to just write my Protestant stuff and get rid of all the other things I don't like, and I'm going to create my own new religion called Uranus, or Urantia, or whatever it's called. And it was essentially a cheap, bad, weaker copy by an obviously intellectually inferior cretin of theosophy. So the Book of Urantia is just a retard that didn't have the inventiveness, the panache, the charisma that Madame Blavatsky had, and wrote this thick, stupid book that apparently is thicker than Bible. It's just retarded. It's completely moronic nonsense. And or like that guy on Social Galactic that goes, I'm talking about logos. I don't need scripture. I have logos. What do you think the word logos means, you moron? Define it. Describe it. Explain to us what logos means. There's people banding about this word because that fraud, creep, fucking grifter E.M. Jones, E. Michael Jones, going around using the word logos, and then, Owen picked it up and like he started using the word logos, and a lot of his followers start using the word logos. Define what logos means to me. Tell me where it comes from. Tell me what that word means. Yeah? And then after you've done that, explain to me how you can talk about logos without talking about scripture, the word, God, and ancient Greek. Good luck. It's just retarded. Okay, let's go back up here. Jordan James and Nikito Bear. We need a nightly order name. Should I open a discussion on SG? Zena's Dart? No. I appreciate your sentiment. I understand it, and I shared it at one point. But here's a few things. One, you can only have an actual Catholic order that is known as an order when it is approved by the papacy. There is no living pope now, so you cannot have a valid order of knights. Cannot have it. You can have an association of laymen and or priests, like for example these guys. They're called Sodalitium. If you go to their website, you'll see that it says, we congregate as per Catholic dogmatic law. We are allowed to create groups of people that are laymen or clerics, and we call ourselves this. But to be an actual order of knights and call yourself an order, you can't do that without the approval of the Holy See. So there's not going to be any orders. And this is a good thing, because I'm going to give you an analogy. People that tattoo themselves, and they're like, oh, I'm going to have a tat because this shows I'm strong, and then you're 90 years old and you're like fucking picture of your girlfriend or whatever it is just sags, and you got like a ink dripping out of you. Your ink can make you have an allergic reaction years later. It can be really uncomfortable. But what it is, it's a lack of strength. It's a weakness. If you need a name, or you need a flag, or you need a banner, I understand that. There is symbology in this. I wear this all the time, and it has more than just the meaning of the cross to me. There's other meanings, whatever. It's a reminder. But you shouldn't, if I lose this, it'll bug me a little bit because of things that are not related to my Christianity, my Catholicism. My daughter has the other half of this. That's one of the reasons. But it's a thing, it's inside you. The truth is the thing that is inside you. Is whether you're a Catholic or not, whether you believe in Jesus Christ, it's in you. They can kill you, they can tear you apart, they can destroy you, but they can't change the truth. And you don't need to have a specific name. You're a Catholic. Now, I don't disagree with you that it's useful for the agglomeration of people. Even here, I say, oh, I call you guys the immortals, because I'm the Kurgan and you're the immortals, right? And it's nice, it's funny, it's cool, but don't go too much on it. Like I've shown you guys, I've made the label of my books like Warrior Monk. That's it. That's a Warrior Monk publication. So yeah, you can be a warrior monk. There's nothing preventing you from being a warrior monk, calling yourself that if you want. But it's not an order. We can definitely be a group of Catholic men that call themselves whatever. They can say, our group is known as, but that's it. It's a group. It's a group of people. It's not an order. The order actually has a dogmatic definition in canon law. So, I hope that explains it. And also, again, you don't need the tattoo, right? You don't need the tattoo to know what's true. You don't need the label on your forehead to tell you, it's inside you. I don't disagree with forming possibly an organization down the line, certainly to buy land, to buy churches, to create churches. I'm in the process of looking at that, actually, of possibly building a little church somewhere and restarting Christianity. So, yeah. Oh, Woolly Ram says you need to spend about $50 on Amazon before you can place reviews. I didn't know that. I just buy a lot of shitload of books I've always bought, so I never encountered that right from the bat. So Rick says, thanks for the advice and personal story, Kurgan. I'll act on it. I'll also be getting the book. Yeah, again, it's not about my book, but I do honestly believe for people like yourself, believe that was my intention. My intention was to write Believe for people like you, because you are something like what I was. Ireland is Novus Ordo land now. Brian Boru, that's exactly true. It is. And Jordan James, no, it's not a good idea, like I've just explained. I hope that's been explained now. And Nicator Bear says, yes, please, I'm listening while doing other stuff. I'll miss the discussion here. Okay, you're all young guys. I understand your zeal, okay? Don't call it an order. Just say you're, whatever, Catholic warrior monks of the, I don't know, or the make up a name, that's fine. Make up a little group, that's fine. But don't call it an order of knights. You're not knights and you're not an order, okay? And by the way, study your family history. Like I've got my family emblem up there because I am actually a nobleman of the lowest order, but I am actually a nobleman. My family does have a historical nobility. So look into it. There's no reason that you can't say I am Nicator Bear of House Nicator, and this is my shield. That's fine. But it's not a Catholic order. Okay. Woolly Ram, thank you. That was what I meant to say. Oh, okay. Unseen 11. Yeah, I didn't know that. So, okay. Well, when you have spent $50, please do put up that review. Mirkwood says there's a famous Slovenian woman that our feminists like to worship that believed in theosophy. A lot of people do. My second ex-wife, I didn't know anything about this stuff. She told me, oh, I went to study the Gnosticism. There was this thing that they had a white dove and they called themselves the Gnostics, and they talk about Saint Michael, but it's not the angel, it's another guy, and one of the masters, the purple master or whatever. I didn't know what any of this shit was. It was just like, yeah, whatever, she's kind of a hippie and she kind of dresses like a hippie and whatever. She wants to believe that shit, who cares? I know a lot better now, but yeah. Shaka says one guy this morning is like, women can't be Freemasons. After I told him about how man Karens in Canada have the Freemason logo on the back of their cars. How many Karens in Canada? Right. Yeah. Danmo, I'm talking to Mormons right now, destroying them. Yeah, all these fake religions. I guess that's why we will soon be persecuted, pissing off everybody. Brian Eds, the utter moron. Oh yeah, he is. He's an utter moron gamma. He's a guy that we should have indeed a burning at the stakes. We should create our own instead of social galactic, anti-social Catholic. Call it the ASC. And make our own little digital group where we'll let people in just so we can burn them at the stake and excommunicate them. EMJ is Jordan Peterson for Norcos. Exactly. That's a very good comparison indeed. Also known as morons. Yeah. Jordan Peterson and E. Michael Jones. Yeah. Muslim girls these days be wearing turban hijabs. Turban hijabs. I don't know. I've never seen one of those. Muslim chicks can be quite hot in bed. I give you that. I mean, they certainly don't care too much about their religion as long as no one from their religion can see them or knows about them doing all the dirty things that they like doing. Oh, my apologies, Kurgan. Don't want to LARP. It's no problem. You didn't know. I had that thought myself some years ago. So I think more than twice your age. So don't worry about it, dude. I'm just letting you know the facts. That's all. There's nothing wrong with creating an organization, but you can't call it an order, and you can't call yourself a knight. That's not unless we've taken over the Vatican. If we've turfed out all the people from the Vatican, I think we'd then be entitled to possibly create a new order of military with a military order of some kind. But we would still have to get the blessing of the new and valid Pope before we can become a Catholic order, you know. I think Woolly Ram, I think, has just possibly made a Western haiku. I'm going to try and read it with the proper decorum. Woolly Ram, Western haiku. Here it comes. EMJ and JBP, sitting in a crack house, smoking. First comes pupil dilation, then comes insomnia. That's beautiful. You see, how can we not have this man in a monastery penning this sort of poetry? Horse Mumbler says, though the Spaniards did fuck up and fail to civilize the portion of the New World that were gifted by the Pope pretty royally. Worldly priest in part, caring for power and coin more than souls. Yeah. Plus, they're Spaniards, you know, you can't rely on those people. I would chalk much of that up to 7 centuries of conquest and reconquista and the necessary evil Islamic influence inherited in warring with them so bitterly and long. Well, yeah, the conquistadors are sort of like God, my right hand, and gold, right? So, yeah. And Xenostart says, no tattoos ever. I'll be reading the Code of Canon Law 1917 and the Catechism of the Council of Trent. Get more clarity and be more careful with my words. Good. Look, from one zealot to another, nothing wrong with being a zealot. It's a good thing. Just don't go overboard before you know why. You know, you be a knowing zealot. Be a zealot because you know. Don't be a zealot because you believe blindly. And remember that in my book of Systema, I wrote there that, you know, faith is, I think, you know, I wrote that courage is more important than wisdom. Imagination is more important than knowledge, which I know Einstein, the plagiarist, said it as well. But and I don't necessarily always fully agree with that. And faith is also more important than knowledge but that doesn't mean that blind faith is more important. It isn't. Blind faith is stupidity. That is self-deception. Real faith, true faith, is something that I cannot really put into words, but it's a knowing. It's a knowing that has a truth behind it, a power behind it. You have to be very well self-aware before you can differentiate between faith, emotion, instinct. These are all things that you can be easily confused if you're not deeply aware of your own inner workings and inner self. And remember that back at Delphi, which I've visited, by the way, brilliant place, one of the most wise things that the Greeks ever put at Delphi, which was the seat of wisdom for the Greeks, was man, know thyself. And know yourself is indeed should be one of the first things that you should work at. For to vanquish an enemy, one must know them, and to know is to at least some extent to be, I think. And Sun Tzu wrote that one must become the enemy to know it, and know it to defeat it. I find Sun Tzu pedant, you know, basic. Sun Tzu is basic. Gorin no Sho, the Book of Five Rings, is that would be my go-to for books on strategy, war tactics, and so on. Sun Tzu is, I find it a bit blah. Not that, you know, like Machiavelli. Everybody's going on about Machiavelli. Machiavelli was a dick who couldn't fucking command a platoon of people to march in a square. Didn't know how to do it. He could fucking, you know, he had all these great theories, but, you know, he wasn't very practical. So, Legio Immortalis, under command of the Kurgan, true Doge of Venice. There you go. See, that has enough of a funny Legio Immortalis. Very good LS16. I like it. The Legion of Immortals under the command of the Kurgan, the true Doge of Venice. I love it. That's great. And you know, there is a chance that Venice could be taken over. So, and there is a chance that Venice could be taken over. Is not a joke. It's a tiny chance at the moment, but you never know. from a mustard seed, remember? Necto says understood, not forming orders. Yeah, good. I'm glad you get it, guys. I'm glad you understand, Remember this. It's very important saying this. Nec spe, nec metu. Without hope, without fear. You don't need the tattoo. You don't need the emblem. I'm not saying you shouldn't have one. But if you don't have one, it's fine too, And there's nothing wrong with creating a Legio Immortalis, by the way. That's fine. That's cool. Make some rules for it, You've got to be a proper Catholic and, I don't know, male, willing to wield a sword, make up some nice rules. That's cool. I'll have to leave now, but we'll definitely message you via email. Take care, Giuseppe, and the rest of y'all. That's Shaka Mambutu. We'll see if we can convert a Muslim without getting him killed. That would be good. Jordan James understood also. Very good. You see, I like this. You three guys understand the concept of being led by the Kurgan. Do not question. Do not even think to question. Simply obey. Yeah, I don't want to be anybody's leader, but if I have to be, I don't want, arguing in the ranks. It's going to be like Leonidas and the 300. That's it. That's why you're called the Immortals. When Leonidas said, I'm going to go for a walk up there and stop those guys, every one of the 300 said, well, we're coming with you. He didn't have to order anybody to do anything. They knew when they were there, to the death, every single one of them. If I have to lead, that's who I want next to me. Anyone else strongly considering putting money on Trump? I think it's a safe bet. We can form groups or communities, for example, biker gang, mafia. Yeah, exactly. Minecraft server. Absolutely, and a Roblox server. Michael was listening the other day. Very good. Antisocial stakes and stakes. Yeah, nice. Legio Immortalis is a good name. I like that. Money on Trump. Yeah. Bully Ram. Rodney Stark mentions in passing that South America was well tended by Jesuit priests, who were then destroyed by Spanish-Portuguese treasure hunters. Absolutely correct. That's true. And that's why, by the way, The Mission is still a brilliant film, because it was historically accurate. It was, that I saw that film, I think it was 1986 maybe that I saw it in a small cinema in Stratford-upon-Avon. It was brilliant film, still a good film. It's a bit slower than films are today, but that's not a bad thing. When you've got a few hours to kill, I strongly suggest watch The Mission. And Horse Mumbler says, yes, zealotry in service of good and God must be good. Real true faith is acceptance of the truth and the true word, whatever it may turn out to be. Indeed. Well, guys, I've been going for almost 2 hours, which is always unexpected. I wanted this to be about a half hour. So thank you all for being here again. We have the 2 downvotes. We've picked up another straggler. And 32 upvotes. Thank you very much. I'm going to wish you all good night. Woolly Ram, let's try for next Friday. This coming Friday, whenever the next one is. Again, subject to my daughter being born or not. Okay, there could be a nice comedic short stories about libertarian democratic voluntarist Leonidas. No, do not pervert the man's name. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you very much. Miyamoto Musashi's work is a significant gap in my knowledge. It's a very short book, Book of Five Rings. It's called Gorin no Sho. Get the translation by Victor Harris. If you're going to read Gorin no Sho, ignore all other translations. Get the one by Victor Harris. That guy was a freak of nature studying the Japanese language, and he translated it properly. I've read several other translations, and they're crap. They're absolute nonsense. And especially the last book, the Book of the Void, which is 1 page. He's done the best job of translating that that I've ever seen. I've experienced the Void. And when I read the Book of the Void, I recognized that what he's describing there because I'd already experienced it, and it's a very interesting state of mind to be in. It happens when you're in a fight, usually life and death stuff, or in battle, or that sort of thing, where you're about to kill or be killed, or things along those lines. And there is only perfection. There is no fear. There is just movement, and it's kind of like a mystical, perfect place. Um, it's very well described. So, um, thank you all. Thank you for your prayers for my daughter, Nikoto Bear. Very much appreciated. And yeah, thank you all, and God bless you all indeed. And good night to all of you, or good day, or whatever you are in the world. But yeah, thank you. Good night.